Well, if you have your Bibles, you can turn with me a couple of different verses that passages we're going to kind of camp out in today. In the Psalms, if you want to go to Psalm chapter 12, you're going to see a couple of the prayers that we're going to look at, prayers that David prayed, and prayers that were very informative for us to teach us how we should be able to pray as well. Now, you'll remember that last week what we looked at was this these ways that some people do things other than praying. The first thing that a lot of people do is simply ignore a problem when it comes up. They just think that somehow magically the problem is going to take care of itself. And so there's really no need for us to get involved in that problem. And so we just kind of ignore it and kind of wishful thinking, hope that it's going to go away. The second step that some of us move to then is talking about the problem. And I'm sorry to say that in some church circles, we call that a prayer request, where we just spend a lot of time talking about the problem, but we never actually go to God and talk to Him about the problem. Now, the third thing that some people do instead of addressing the problem the right way is they just simply go to work on it. We talked last week about how some people mistakenly believe, even though this isn't in the Bible, they live like it is, they act like it is, that the Bible might say God helps those who help themselves. That like somehow we're supposed to start working on it and then God will say, hey, you've done a good job so far, so let me jump in and take it from here. And sometimes we even like kind of insert prayer in there. We say, well, I'm not ignoring the problem, I'm not talking about the problem, but I'll pray about it and then I'll go to work on it. But what we saw last week is that it's not the talking about it, or it's not the praying to get us ready to work or ready to go to battle, but prayer is the battle. Prayer itself is the battle. If you look at what Paul said in Ephesians chapter 6, when he talked about the armor of God that we put on the armor not to fight in, but to pray in. The armor is to shield us while we pray, because prayer is actually fighting the battle. Prayer is what is going to win the day. And so the series that we're really going to, we kind of introduced it last week, but we're going to dive into it in earnest today, is called The Prayers of David. Here's a great thing that we see about the life of David, is we can read in the Bible not only the narrative, the historical account of what was going on in his life, but then we can also see in the book of the Psalms, David's prayers that are recorded for us. And what I love about David, and you'll see it this morning, is that when a problem comes up, he certainly doesn't ignore it. He doesn't call together some of his military leaders and say, hey, can we talk about this? Can we form a strategy? Come on, guys, let's huddle up here and come up with something. And he doesn't say, okay, pull out your swords, let's go to battle, let's get to work on this thing. David turns to prayer. Prayer is his reflexive response. It's the first thing that he wants to go to. In fact, you can even look at on the negative side, the times where David just said, let's act, let's do something. That's when he gets himself into trouble. But when he follows this reflex of saying, there's a problem, I better pray about it, then that's when we begin to see that God going to work, where prayer is the battle. Prayer is the work that God wants to accomplish. Now, on a lot of these Psalms, you will see these kind of introductory remarks. So kind of in between the heading where it says Psalm whatever, the number is, and verse number 1, you'll see a little introduction in there. And sometimes, like in Psalm chapter 12, where we're going to look at one of them today, it says, for the director of music. So it lets us know David wrote this to give it to the worship leader in the tabernacle. And then he says, according to a Sheminith. Now, our best guess is that is some kind of a musical term, so it's telling them maybe how up-tempo the song is supposed to be played, or maybe what kind of instruments, we're not really sure. And then it tells us it's a Psalm of David. So kind of like how, we would see that today. Somebody writes a poem or a song, and it's lyrics by or music by, and we see their name in there. We see that. Now, oftentimes as well, we're going to see a little bit of setting. David might say, I wrote this during the time that this was happening. And so we know exactly where it is, and it's kind of easier to look up if you go back into the Old Testament and say, okay, now we can find where it is. Some of them, like this one here, doesn't tell us the exact setting that's going on. And so we're going to have to kind of use our best guess. We're going to have to put some clues together. And so we don't know for sure the setting that we're going to look at, that it's exactly what was going on, but I'm going to make the case the best that I can that I think that that's what was happening. But this psalm is one of the best prayers that any one of us can pray, and it's really easy to remember this prayer because it's just one word long. Help. I mean, everybody can pray help, right? But you don't think about it. Just in that one word, you know what you're saying to God? I can't do it, but you can. I mean, you don't call help out to somebody who can't help you, right? You're calling help to somebody who has the capacity to help you, or at least, at the very least, you're saying to somebody, would you go get help? You know, I see that you have 2 legs so that you could run somewhere and find somebody that you know, so when we're saying help, we're saying, I can't do it, but somebody else can, and we're going to call on them. So, again, we don't know exactly the setting, but I want you to look with me in 1 Samuel. I think that this might very well be one of the settings, one of the situations that was going on that David caused David to yell out help. In 1 Samuel chapter 23. David was told, look, the Philistines are fighting against Keilah, and they're looting the threshing floors. So, in other words, looting the threshing floors, what it means is that the people have gone out and harvested all of their grain, and now they're waiting for it to dry, and then they're going to kind of separate it. They usually run a sledge across it to kind of break the grain off of the stalks, and then they start throwing it up in the air and let the wind blow away the chaff. And so here's the Philistines saying, you know, we didn't plant the crops, we didn't tend to the crops, we didn't even harvest it, but thanks for doing that for us, we're just going to come and take it from you. Okay? So in other words, they're going to starve this town of Keilah to death because they're going to take their food from them. Now look at David's reflexive response. He inquired of the Lord. That's his first response. He hears that the Philistines are attacking, they're looting, they're taking the grain that's there, and he doesn't go, all right guys, get your swords on, let's go. First thing he does, he inquires of the Lord, saying, shall I go and attack these Philistines? God, is this what you want me to do? The Lord answered him, go attack the Philistines and save Keilah. But David's men go, hold up a second. As it is right now, we're just trying to dodge Saul, and you know, he's after us, and we're just trying to stay away from him, and so we're somewhat safe here. So David's men said to him, here in Judah, we're afraid. How much more then if we go to Keilah against the Philistine forces? So you want us, we're kind of a small band of men, to go against this full army. And not only are we going to have to be fighting them, we're probably going to have to be watching our back as well, because Saul might be coming from behind here. Are you sure that you heard from God? And so verse 4, once again, David inquired of the Lord. Now, he didn't argue with them. He didn't say, guys, come on. I already prayed about this. Let's go. Or he didn't say, let's rationally think this through. There's no argument, no rationalizing with people, no trying to persuade them. He just says, okay, I'm going to go pray again. So once again, David inquired of the Lord, and the Lord answered to him, go down to Keilah, for I am going to give the Philistines into your hand. So David and his men went to Keilah, fought the Philistines, carried off their livestock. He inflicted heavy losses on the Philistines and saved the people of Keilah. Yay! All right? That's the people of Keilah. They're excited. Hey, we thought we were going to be starving this winter, but you saved our food. And not only did they save the food, look, they carried off the Philistine livestock. They said, we not only have the grain for you, but we got some steaks as well. We're coming with more. Now, you would think that the people of Keilah would be like throwing a ticker tape parade for David and his men, walk down Main Street, because we're so excited about this. But look down in verse number 7. Saul was told that David had gone to Keilah, and he said, God has handed him over to me, for David has imprisoned himself by entering a town with gates and bars. So in other words, we can surround the town and we've got him trapped. Okay? And so Saul called up his forces for battle to go down to Keilah and besiege David and his men. When David learned that Saul was plotting against him, he said to Abiathar the priest, bring the ephod. So in other words, he wants to pray again. David said, O Lord, God of Israel, your servant has heard definitely that Saul plans to come to Keilah and destroy the town on account of me. Will the citizens of Keilah surrender me to him? Will Saul come down as your servant has heard? O Lord, God of Israel, tell your servant. And the Lord said, he will. Again, David asked, will the citizens of Keilah surrender me and my men to Saul? And the Lord said, they will. Talk about ingratitude. I mean, he just saved them from starvation during the winter months. But David prays about it, and he finds out as soon as Saul shows up, Keilah is going to go, David? David who? What have you done for me lately? And out he's going to go. So David leaves, verse number 14. Or verse number 13, so David and his men, about 600 in number, left Keilah and kept moving from place to place. When Saul was told that David had escaped from Keilah, he did not go there. So David stayed in the desert strongholds and the hills of the desert of Ziph. Day after day, Saul searched for him, and God did not give David into his hands. God's fighting the battle for him, in other words. But then, now here's David just minding his own business. I'm just staying out of Saul's way, and not, he's not even living in the town of Keilah anymore, where maybe there's an expectation that they got to provide some hospitality. He's just out in the desert. But verse number 19, the Ziphites, they take it on themselves. They went up to Saul at Gibeah and said, Psst, we know where David is. And he says, King, come down whenever it pleases you to do so, and we'll be responsible for handing him over to you. I mean, these people are David's never done anything to them. He's never hurt them at all. Hasn't asked anything from them. He's not bothering them, and yet they're saying, hey Saul, if you come down, we'll help you capture him. We'll turn him over. We know all of his hiding places. So look in David's prayer in Psalm 12. And again, this is a prayer that I think that he probably, very likely could have been praying during this time. Help. Why? Lord, help me, Lord, for the godly are no more. The faithful have vanished from among men. Everyone lies to his neighbor. Their flattering lips speak with deception. In other words, he's saying, where have all the decent people gone? Why can't people even do the right thing? I go down here, I risk my own life and the life of my men. We don't have to do this, but we did this to rescue Keilah, and as soon as they hear that Saul's going to show up, they're going to turn me over. So I leave there, and I go out in the desert, and I'm not bothering anybody. I'm just minding my own business, living my own life. I'm not asking anybody to help me with anything. I'm not intruding anywhere. And these Ziphites go and find Saul and say, hey, psst, we'll turn him over to you if you just come down here. He says, where have the godly men gone? Where are the righteous people? Everyone's just lying. They're deceiving. They're talking bad about people. They're flattering the people that they want to flatter. And in this case, flattering Saul. Hey, Saul, we like you a lot more than David. You're a great guy. You could probably do some stuff for us, so we'll turn David over to you. In Psalm 54, this is one of the Psalms that gives us a little bit of a setting here. And it tells us in the intro that David wrote this song when the Ziphites had gone to Saul and said, is not David hiding among us? And in this psalm, David points something out here. He says, strangers are attacking me. Notice that, strangers. They're not friends. I have no acquaintance with them. In fact, if you go and look, if you search for Ziphites, if you use your concordance and you look, this is the only spot that they're mentioned. We don't really know where they came from. We don't know what their background was. And so in other words, David's saying, I never even did anything to them. It's not like they're holding a grudge against me. It's not like I was intruding someplace. They're strangers that are attacking me. Ruthless men seek my life. But notice this phrase, men without regard for God. In other words, they're just in it for themselves. They're not answering to somebody above them. So David's prayer when he says here, help the godly are no more, the faithful have vanished from among men. These are people that are just selfish. They're just in it just for them. They're not thinking about the consequences. They're not thinking about answering back to God. Now, does that ring a bell? Does that sound familiar at all to kind of the culture that we may live in today? 200 years after this time, the prophet Micah said this: the godly people have all disappeared. Not one honest person is left on earth. They are all murderers, setting traps even for their own brothers. They don't even have, they're not even like, hey, we're family. I'll look out for you. They're even setting traps for their own brothers. Now, we haven't escaped that. In fact, if anything, it's probably gotten worse. Paul, writing to Timothy, he says this: now the Holy Spirit tells us clearly that in the last times, some will turn away from the true faith. They will follow deceptive spirits and teachings that come from demons. These people are hypocrites and liars, and their consciences are dead. Now that sounds really similar to the culture that we live in today. People are hypocrites, liars, and their conscience doesn't even bother them when they do those things. So if David had to pray help here, how much more so do we need to pray this prayer today? How much more so, because we're surrounded by these people. And what Paul was really telling Timothy is that until Jesus comes back, this situation is going to get worse and worse and worse. If David, in like 1000 BC, is saying, the godly are no more, the faithful have vanished from among men, everyone lies to his neighbor, their flattering lips speak with deception, how much more so now? And that's why he's crying out, help. I can't, because I can't even tell now when I'm talking to somebody, I can't even read it anymore. Are they honest or are they dishonest? Are they going to be faithful or unfaithful? I'm looking right at them, and they got, it's like a poker face. I can't tell. I need help trying to figure this out. So here's his prayer. He says, may the Lord cut off all flattering lips and every boastful tongue that says, we will triumph with our tongues. We own our lips. Who is our master? In other words, I don't report to God. They don't acknowledge God, that I make it myself. I'm the make or break even on myself. But here's what I love in verse number 5 of David's prayer. There's this little tiny punctuation mark. Do you see it right at the beginning? It's a quotation mark. David is praying to God, help, Lord. He's praying. But in the middle of his prayer, he quotes God. He quotes God back to God. Right? He's already praying. Now, I think of this sometimes like you probably have experienced this before. As a parent, your child is talking to you, and your child reminds you, hey, Dad, remember you said? Okay? This is what David's doing here. He says, God, I need help. I want to remind you, God, of something that you said. This part's in quotation. So here's God speaking. Because of the oppression of the weak and the groaning of the needy, I will now arise, says the Lord. I will protect them from those who malign them. David's saying, God, this is what you said. You said that if the bad guys started ganging up on me, you're going to arise. You're going to defend your people. You're not going to let your name be defamed. You're not going to let people sully your name. You're not going to let them say, hey, who's our master? We're in charge. We get to call the shots. God, you're going to arise and show that you're God and that you're in charge. This is what you said. I'm just quoting your words back to you. I'm just quoting your words. Now, friends, I am, the more that I serve the Lord, the more that I talk with people that are going through battles, and I go through battles myself, the more I am convinced of this, that in large part, the battle is won or lost right here. It's whether we are going to remember what God said and recall his words, or whether we're just going to give in to the circumstances of the moment. We're going to let everything that's happening around us bombard us and let that control our thoughts. or whether we're going to say, well, hold on a second here. I can see for myself what's going on. But here's what I remember. Here's what I recall. Here's the quotation marks. God, you said this. I like this verse. We looked at it last week. We said this. A lot of people like to take this phrase, this last phrase, all by itself. They like to say, ask whatever you wish and it will be given to you. Like it's some kind of magical wand. Well, I asked, and so God, just give this to me. But again, punctuation. There's a comma there. What comes before this? Jesus said, if you remain in me and my words remain in you. What remains in us? My words. Jesus said, if you recall my words, if my words remain in you. So Jeremiah wrote in the book of Lamentations, yet this I call to mind and release it. When I recall this, when I bring this back to my mind, then that's when I have hope. This I call to mind, and therefore I have hope. Because of the Lord's great love, we're not consumed, for his compassions never fail. Never fail. His compassions never fail. So he is always standing there with us. So this is what David says then. After he quotes God's word, then he says, now it's back to him praying, and he says, I got to make a declaration about this. The words of the Lord are flawless, like silver refined in a furnace of clay, purified 7 times over. You know what he's saying? If God said it, you can take that to the bank. You don't have to wonder, did you really mean that? Could you really do that? Can you really come through there? David said, this is what God said, and the words of the Lord are flawless. He doesn't make any mistakes. God doesn't misspeak. God didn't say, oh, well, sorry, I shouldn't have said that. I wasn't aware that this was going to take place, and so we're going to have to come up with plan B there. He says God's words are flawless. They're purified. They're refined silver. They're beautiful. They're valuable. They're priceless. And so, this is what the writer of Hebrews says. So we can say with confidence, if I'm going to pray help, here's what I can say with confidence. The Lord is my helper. Not man. David started off, he says, help. Well, who's he praying to? He's praying to the helper. And I'll not be afraid. What can man do to me? And man's limited. He can only go so far. He only has so many resources. He only has so much strength. He's got to sleep at night. God's not restricted by any of those things. He's unlimited in his power, unlimited in his resources. He doesn't have to say, well, I'm a little tired. Let me take a rest and then I'll get to you in a little bit. Or, I don't quite have the resources right now. Let me go over here and get them and then I'll have them available to you. I can say with confidence, the Lord is my helper. So when I pray this prayer and I say, help, Lord, because I don't know who else to turn to. There's no more godly people. There's no more decent people around. Everybody's just lying and flattering. But God, here's what I know. Here's what your word says. Here's what I recall to mind. And when I recall it to mind, I have hope because I can take your word to the bank. Your word says that when you see the oppression of the weak, when you hear my cry, then you are going to arise and you are going to take care of the situation. And so he wraps up his prayer in chapter 12 by saying, Lord, you will keep us safe and protect us from such people forever. The wicked freely strut about when what is vile is honored among men. When they think that they're getting away with it, they kind of like, hey, look what we got away with. But God, you are going to arise. You are going to keep us safe. We can take this to the bank. I can say with confidence, the Lord is my helper. I'll not be afraid. What can man do to me? So I wrote this down in my journal and I wanted to share this with you. When wickedness flourishes, don't lose hope. Look up, cry out help to the only one who can help. Go to his word, because those are the words that never fail. These words never fail. Now, I know that sometimes we cry out help, and we kind of expect that, I prayed the prayer, and so the help should be here. And sometimes we even say, this is what I think that the help should look like when it shows up. God, here's the timetable that I'm comfortable with. Here's the outcome that I'd like to see. Okay, and that's what we say. And we cry out help, and it doesn't happen the way that we expected that it was going to happen. And we said, well, okay, but God, this is what you said. But now notice there's not like a date on there. And it says that God's going to arise and deal with this, but it doesn't say exactly how he's going to deal with it. And so this very next prayer that David prays in this next psalm, I think kind of dovetails on this, because God draws away Saul when the Ziphites say in 1 Samuel 23, when they say, hey, Saul, if you'll come down here, we know where David's hiding and we'll turn him over to you. When Saul starts to show up, God distracts Saul and gets him to leave. He gets a message that the Philistines are attacking somewhere else, so he retreats and he takes off. And so David and his men are kind of left on their own again, and they're still hanging out in that same wilderness. They think, okay, I think we should be safe here. 3 chapters later, chapter 26 starts off with, again, these Ziphites once again saying, is not David hiding out here? If you come on down, we'll turn him over to you. We'll show you where he is. We'll help you trap him. And so I think that Psalm 13 kind of falls right on that. 4 times in the first 2 verses, David's asked this question. So how long? I prayed help. I said to God, I said, help. And I called out to the only one who was able to help me. And I reminded you of your words, and I said, your words are flawless. I can take it to the bank. I've got confidence in that, and I know that you're going to do it. But how long is this going to take until I get this relief? So look what he says. Look at all these questions in chapter 13. This is his next prayer. How long, O Lord, will you forget me forever? How long will you hide your face from me? How long must I wrestle with my thoughts and every day have sorrow in my heart? How long will my enemy triumph over me? I love this when he says, will you forget me forever? Doesn't that sound like, sometimes as we get older, we become a little bit more refined. But doesn't it sound like, your kids? This is taking forever, right? I think that we have a grown-up way of saying that. Sometimes we don't say it that way to God. But David is raw enough, real enough, honest enough to say to God, this seems like forever. What? I prayed help. When is it going to come? When is it? And so then he goes on in verse 1, look on me and answer me, O Lord my God. Give light to my eyes, or I will sleep in death. My enemies will say, I have overcome him, and my foes will rejoice when I fall. God, if you don't show up soon, my enemies are going to start gloating over the fact that they got the upper hand on me. So how long? When is this going to take place? Well, I want to answer the question a slightly different way first. Last week we looked at, and we just looked at the verse a minute ago, in John 15:7, where Jesus said, if you remain in me and my words remain in you. And we talked about this idea of abiding. Now, remember the setting in John chapter 15. Jesus said, I am the vine, and you are the branches. So let me try to answer this question in a different way from an agricultural standpoint. How long does the branch need to remain connected to the vine before it can go off on its own? Can't go anywhere, right? I mean, it can, but it's disconnected itself from the source. Now, the branch might be saying, hey, how long until I see some fruit? How long until some things start blossoming on me? And the vine, it knows how much resource to send and can have that life force connect there. But I know one thing I know for sure is as soon as the branch says, all right, you know what, I asked for help, and it's just not showing up on my time frame, not showing up the way that I want. I guess, maybe it really is true that God helps those who help themselves, so I got to go take care of this myself. What happens as soon as that branch is disconnected from the vine? See, again, just like where David said, that, I'm remembering what God's word said, or Jeremiah said in Lamentations, this is what I recall to mind. David said it there in verse number 2 as well. How long must I wrestle with my thoughts? There's something about our thought life there. We looked at John 15:7 out of the Amplified Version, and I especially like this phrase in here where it says that you abide vitally united to me. We have to say, even as we sung in the psalm this morning, where else can I go? If I were to try to leave and go do this on my own, I'm no longer vitally united to Jesus. My branch is separated from his vine. I don't have his life force flowing into me anymore. So how long do I have to remain? No, until the answer is there. Until Jesus calls me home. Till death or the rapture takes me. I need to stay connected. I need to stay vitally united to him. But there's something that we can do in this battle along the way, and in this prayer along the way. I want you to see it in Psalm 13, verses 5 and 6. I want you to see the pattern here. I will trust in your unfailing love. My heart rejoices in your salvation. I will sing to the Lord, for he has been good to me. Now, it's hard for us to really kind of capture the verb tense that's here. But what David is saying is, I will keep on trusting. I've trusted before, and I'm going to keep on doing it now. There's no reason for me to stop trusting you. And my heart rejoices in your salvation. I rejoiced the day that I met you, and I'm still rejoicing now. I will sing to the Lord. I began to sing a brand new song when you came into my life and revealed yourself to me, and I'm still going to sing that song today. I think that the Message paraphrase gets a little bit closer to this. I've thrown myself headlong into your arms. I'm celebrating your rescue. I'm singing at the top of my lungs. I'm so full of answered prayers. I'm so full of answered prayers. God, you've already rescued me. In fact, my heart rejoices in your salvation. Think about it this way on the New Testament side. God loved you so much that he allowed his son to come to earth and die on a cross for you. And so now would we think that he would say, well, even though that took place, you're on your own trying to get connected. You got to figure this out on your own. If he's already done that, won't he do everything else necessary to draw us in, to keep us connected, to help us feel his presence and his life flowing into our life as we remain vitally united to him? Won't he do everything else? And so I want you to see in this here, he says, I trust in your unfailing love. My heart rejoices in your salvation. I will sing to the Lord, for he has been good to me. I wrote it out this way. I'm going to kind of paraphrase this a little bit because I want you to see something here. I have asked for your help, and I have seen your love. I've asked for your help before, and I've seen your love on display. So I will keep on rejoicing in your salvation because I've seen it before. I'm going to keep on rejoicing. If nothing else, you've saved me. If my life is done, if my foes really are ganging up on me, if this is really the end, I'm going to be with you. So if nothing else, I have my salvation. So I can go on. You've rescued me from sin, so I know you will continue to care for me. Now this is a part of our recalling to mind. When David says, how long am I going to wrestle with my thoughts? When Jeremiah says, if I wanted hope, what I had to do was recall these words to mind. That God, you've never failed. You've never failed. So I want you to look at this pattern. This is how it goes. I have, I will. Speaking to God, you have, you will. I have called on you before. I will continue to call on you now. You have answered me before, so you will answer me again. I have to recall that to mind. I have done this before, and so I will keep on doing it because you have done this before, and you're still the same God today. Your power hasn't diminished. Your resources haven't become depleted. You're not scrambling to try to figure out what you need to do. You're not trying to say, hey, I need to build up some strength or some resources so I can come and help you. I have called on you before. I have yelled out, help. And I will rejoice in that, and I will continue to call on you because you have provided for me before, and you will provide for me again. Our hope comes when we continue to say, now is the time. You've done it before, and you're still the same God. So that's why Jesus told us about this when we were praying. Keep on asking, and it will be given to you. Keep on seeking, and you will find. Keep on knocking reverently, and the door will be open to you. Keep on, keep on, keep on. I have knocked before, and I rejoiced in what you opened for me, what you provided for me. You are the same God. You will provide again. And so I'm going to keep on knocking, keep on asking, keep on seeking. And when it's the right time, you're going to open the door. We don't want to limit God and say, God, how long? I want it right now. Very well could be that God wants to accomplish something so much bigger than we could comprehend. And so he's going to give you, I love the words in the hymn, Great is Thy Faithfulness, where he says he gives you strength for today and a bright hope for tomorrow. Blessings all mine, plus 10,000 beside. I have called on you. I will continue to call on you. You have answered me. You will answer me again. I'd like you to bow your heads with me for a second, and I'm going to read and turn Psalm 54. It's the other prayer where David prefaced it by saying, this is when the Ziphites were wanting to turn me in. And I'm going to turn this into a prayer for us today. I think it fits well as we pray help, and we ask ourselves sometime and wrestle with how long will it take for that help to come. Save me, O God, by your name. Vindicate me by your might. Hear my prayer, O God. Listen to the words of my mouth, because strangers are attacking me. Ruthless men that have no regard for you are seeking my life. But I say, surely God is my help. Surely the Lord is the one who sustains me. So evil is going to recoil on those who slander me. And I'm going to be able to continue to offer sacrifices to you. I will continue to praise your name, O Lord, for it is good. For you have delivered me from my troubles. My eyes have looked on triumph, in triumph on my foes. And so, God, because I have called on you before and you have answered, I know that if I will call on you now, you will answer again. So, Lord, I pray that you would help all of us to win this battle in our mind. Help us to remember, first of all, that we need to cry out help to you. When the enemy attacks, when circumstances don't go as we had expected, may we not fall into the trap of ignoring the problem or just talking about the problem or even starting to work on the problem ourselves. May we learn from this example of David that when there's a problem that we just immediately inquire of you. We turn to you and we cry out help to you. But then God, help us to recall to mind your words, your flawless, perfect words that never fail. Let us recall that to mind. That's what is going to give us hope. And when our thoughts begin to, again, plague us and we say, well, how long am I going to have to wrestle with these thoughts? How long am I going to have to wait for deliverance? How long is it going to be until you step in? Remind us, Lord, that our life needs to stay vitally connected to yours, like the branch to the vine. And then we can recall, I have called on you. You have answered. You're the same God today, so I will call on you again, and you will answer me again in your strength and in your love. So God, I pray for my friends this week that are facing battles. It might be enemies like David faced, people that were running them down, slandering them, people that they're around that don't really know if they can trust them or not. It might be concerns regarding their health, their finances, relationships, decisions that need to be made.
God, may they be quick this week to cry out help to the only one who is able to help. May they cry out with confidence, the Lord is my helper. May they say, I don't have to be afraid, because these things around me, they have limited power. They have limited hold on my life. But God, you have unlimited power. You have the final word. You have the ultimate say. So I'll trust in you. And I will recall it to mind again and again and again. I will keep on asking for your help. I will keep on seeking to see where you're providing. I will keep on knocking to see which door you're going to open for me. And God, you're going to be glorified, because I won't get any of the credit. I'm not working on the problem on my own. I haven't turned to somebody else to see if they could give me insight or advice on how to help me solve this. But God, I am only asking you, and so when the answer comes, you will receive all the glory. You will receive all the praise. So God, help us to live in that expectation. Help us to continue to recall to mind all that you've said, all that you've done, so that we can continue to stay vitally united with you and can continue to call on you for help. Bless my friends this week as they wait on you, as they continue to call to you. Remind them that prayer is the work. Prayer is the battle. You do hear them, and you are moving on their behalf. Thank you, Lord, for that blessing and that assurance. In Jesus' name, amen. God bless you, friends. Keep praying. How long is it going to take? Till God says. But keep praying. Keep praying. He is your help. God bless you. I love you. Have a wonderful week.